What's going on, guys? Welcome to another video. I'm your boy NarikChase, and in this video, we are in episode 116 of the Streamline Podcast. And obviously, you can see on the screen, we're going to be talking about the Supergirl film 2026. Go ahead and drop that bad boy. All right, so I watched Supergirl, and look, let's just go ahead and just talk about it. Look, ever since they announced that Supergirl was going to come out, it wasn't going to do good. A lot of it has to do with what they've been doing in Hollywood, how they've treated the DC universe, the comics, and the DCEU. The way James Gunn just kind of came out and started announcing stuff and started going back and forth with the fans, and even made worse since Alcock, who's the girl that plays Supergirl, started running her mouth. Now, I don't particularly think she started it off as being malicious. She just kind of up in this trend of just saying stupid stuff that these dumb journalists and stuff be asking her. Just stupid, just dumb questions, just dumb journalists, just totally unprofessional. But it was always doomed to fail. And plus, the budgets are just stupid. There's no reason that this movie should have been almost $200 million. It absolutely was not. But having said that, I was looking forward to seeing this film. I've done some videos regarding the first original Supergirl film from the 1984 featuring Helen Slater, and I wanted to see an updated version. So I went into this, and I did not like how she was portrayed in the 2025 Superman film. I thought it was crazy that she was drunk, acting the way she acted. The dog just completely... I hated the dog throughout the entire film. I don't think there was one moment in the film that I liked the dog. But when I seen the trailer, I was initially kind of against the Supergirl film as well too. But then I started thinking to myself, why is she partying? Why is she set as this kind of grim character? And in the trailer, it hit me. I was like, dude, she's the last of her kind. Unlike Clark, she didn't witness the destruction of her home, the death of her family, of his family. She did. So this is her coping with that. And I was like, that's actually a good vehicle for some strong storytelling concerning characters. There's a lot of characters that have dealt with situations like that, and they're really compelling characters. So I was interested. I walked into this film not thinking it's going to be action packed, not thinking it's going to be the game changer for the DCEU, not thinking it's going to be a vehicle for wokeness or anything like that. My whole thing into going to this film was, okay, how are we going to address her dealing with the loss of her family and her planet and her race? And and also as another thing too, I read the book, the comic, the graphic novel, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, that this movie was inspired by. And I'm actually able, I think I'm decent able to enough to know, okay, to kind of separate it from that, because I actually loved that graphic novel. It was actually really good. It told a side of Supergirl that I actually hadn't really read before, and I thought it was really good what they did with the character. Tom King, you did a fantastic job with that. But when I came out of the movie theater, I actually liked the film. And a lot of it is because it addressed one of the things that I wanted to see. Well, the main thing that I wanted to see from Supergirl, and it was a bit of character development and how she's addressed it, the steps that she's been through, how this journey mirrors a lot of what she's experienced regarding being on Earth and stuff. And it's just the grief that she's dealing with, and how she has come into this moment of accepting the new place she is in life. And I felt like by the end of the film, she did develop. And that's what I really, really wanted. Now, there's a lot of problems that the film does have. And we're going to, this will be spoiler-free review. And, well, at least this part, spoiler-free. In this, well, let's go into review then. In the film, there's this girl. I never know how to say her damn name. What was the girl's Ruthye. Ruthye. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, it is what it is. I'm sorry. I've always Ruthye. In the film, her family gets killed by this guy named Krem of the Yellow Hills, and she's searching for him. He's this bandit, his brigand, this bandit, this basically criminal that's just wilding out, just doing stupid, crazy stuff. He ends up killing her family. She's trying to go find him and kill him. She comes across Supergirl. Supergirl ends up getting pulled into this as well, and it becomes this revenge trip of trying to find this guy and bring justice to him. And on the surface, that's a good story. It's not like the biggest, deepest story, but it's a good vehicle, and it could have been much more deeper and had much more layers. Now, let's talk about the things that I did like about this film, because unlike a lot of these people I've seen on YouTube and on Twitter talking about the movie's trash from start to finish, they're a bunch of a-holes. People have their opinions, and but I want to see some legitimate criticisms. But hey, they have their opinions too, so I guess, I don't know. I don't like when people say they don't like something, but they can't tell you why they didn't like it. I think that's stupid. You should be able to tell me what you didn't like about it. And every project should have some goods and some bads. Not everything just completely bad. Although, there's a lot of that on Tubi. So, but when I thought that Millie Alcock definitely was just a fantastic Supergirl. I didn't think she was going to be able to nail it. She nailed it. She gave this Supergirl, and a lot of the Supergirl portrayals that we have seen have shown her kind of dealing with the loss of her, the trauma of losing basically her world. But I felt like she nailed it on this one. She had much more time to process it. We got much more time to see it. We got much more time to see how it's affected her. And these types of things can affect a person like this. We get to understand why she acts the way she is, why she is how she is with Clark, how she is towards Earth. Just generally, we do understand why she is in this position that she is, and she does come off as kind of not, I guess you could say, unlikable to a certain extent. But again, you understand why. But despite that, throughout the film, you see her consistently doing good. And whether it's because of, Clark's influence, if it's just because the influence of her family, she still does good despite this situation that she's in. So, I actually thought that she was good. I thought she had a good arc. I thought that, for the most part, it actually worked. And the flashbacks were handled well. We get to see her dealing with the family, her race, Clark when she gets there, when she gets to Earth, we get to see that, her adjusting to Earth and all of that. So as far as her character, I thought they did a great job. There's some moments, she had some really cool moments as well. It wasn't a girl power movie to me. She didn't dominate everybody. There were some times she took a lot of blows. There were some times she got her butt kicked. The fights weren't just one-sided. Yeah, she was kicking butt, but I thought that there was a pretty cool balance. There's some fights I actually thought that she should have been able to just wipe everybody out like that. But I do like the nuance they gave towards the fighting and kind of leveling the playing field with some of the other characters, with the villains and stuff like that. So I actually thought that they nailed it with her. She did a fantastic job as the character. There are some pretty cool action beats. A lot of it's one-shot takes, and I love those. Are some of the best because it takes great choreography. It takes good timing. It takes like people being physically in shape. None of the editing stuff. Great camera work. That's some of the best. Not only is the choreography good, but the camera work is always just epic how they utilize it. So there were some pretty good action beats in this as well. Visually, I thought it looked really good. It does have this kind of rusty, rundown Mad Max look to it. The way all of these different worlds kind of look that they go to. It's got this kind of steampunkish, almost techno, apocalyptic Western look to it. And I thought it worked. I thought the setup worked as well too. The music itself it's fine. It's serviceable. I don't want to say that there's like a really really badass like song to it, but I think it's actually the music is actually pretty good. The performances too were actually really good as well. And of course, I got to bring out the showstopper. Jason Momoa was actually pretty good as Lobo. Yes, he pretty much played Jason Momoa, but Lobo stole the show. He had some really good moments. He was funny. He was pretty brutal. I just loved the interpretation of him. One of the coolest aspects to Lobo too that they did in this film was when he would either get angry or he would get serious or something like that. His eyes would start glowing. I mean, his eyes are red, but they would actually start glowing. I thought that was actually a pretty cool touch as well. But I thought the movie also has some heart to it. Maybe it doesn't stick the landing every single time, but it does have some charm, a bit of charm and some heart to it. And I will say, I ultimately I did like the film. Is it gonna save the DCU? No. Is it going to revolutionize, comic book films? No. But I thought it was an enjoyable experience. Now, let's talk about the negatives. The girl that plays Ruth, I think she did a fantastic job as the character. I don't think the character I don't think the character itself got enough. I don't think she had enough. Like the whole film felt like to me it should have been like a learning experience for her, and I don't think it was. I don't think when you start to see bits and pieces of, hey, she goes to when she interacts with different aliens and stuff. This girl is lived on this farm her entire life. She's like not that old, like maybe 10 or 12. It seems like or a preteen. It seems like. But it's like you haven't met any of these aliens. You don't know how to react. Like those fish out of water moments that should have been in the film. We get a couple, but I don't think it was enough. So, and by the end of the film, as far as her character developing, I like the way that they address what happens in the film regarding the revenge quest and all of that. And I think that it barely made it over the line. I think there should have been a bit more build, just a little bit more to help us get to that point. But I don't think they fully capitalized on her character enough. Also, the villain Krem of the Yellow Hills when he is first introduced. It's a cool moment. I was like, okay, he looks a hell of a lot different than does in the comics, but let's see where we're going. When they first introduce his character, he comes off as pretty badass. I was like, cool. But then after that, he's just become the generic, no-named, most forgettable villain throughout the entire film. He doesn't do anything cool. He doesn't do anything memorable. He doesn't have any memorable lines. He's just a brute. It's not that he's like this mastermind or anything like that. It's just there's nothing special about his character in this film. And I will say this, the writers end up putting this extra bit of he's a bad guy. You don't like him because a bad guy, but of course they end up having to do extra, and even that extra isn't even really utilized enough in the film because it feels tacked on. It's like another reason for you to hate this guy, and it's not even utilized properly. So when people are saying that he's the kind of a forgettable villain, one of the worst, I understand why they say that. It definitely could have had a bit more to his character, but hey, it is what it is. Now, there are also some things, pacing wise, I didn't have a problem with the film, but I will say there are some interesting directions that I think the film could have benefited, and they're not gone that way. And a lot of the writing is kind of bad too. There are some moments where I feel like Supergirl could be utilizing a certain power in a situation, but she doesn't utilize it, and it comes off as kind of weird. There are some moments where she's in space, and they need to explain to me how she's able to breathe in space, if she's breathing in space. Look, I'm a fan of Invincible, but when they're in space, they're not talking really. they're not breathing. If they are talking and doing, I think it was a mind thing where they're talking to each other, but there's not them like with their mouth open and stuff like that. So when she's in space, there's a couple of moments where it seems like she's breathing in space, and it's like, no, we need to address that. Why? How is she able to do that in space? Because it was my impression that they couldn't. Kryptonians can't breathe in space, but again, in Invincible, they don't. They hold their breath. So I'm interested to see what they're going with that. As far as this being like a woke film, it isn't. There's a thing again, that little attached thing that they do put into the story doesn't really make sense. So I'm not sure why they even put that in there. But that's, if anybody would say that there was like a female thing, a central thing in there, that would be it. Again, some of the pacing I really didn't have an issue with. I think it kind of hurts like some of the character development for Ruth, as well as some exposition of the character Krem of the Yellow Hills. And also, the characterization of his villain, like his rogues, his buddies or whatever, they should have been different. They should have been able to. We should have been able to differentiate those characters because they all look alike. It was even several points where a guy looked like Krem. I thought it was Krem. He either got killed off or something happened to him. And I was like, "What? The bad guy just died?" And you find out it's not him. Somebody that kind of looked like him. It was like, okay. So there are some writing issues, and even some of the dialogue definitely doesn't hurt. It just just a lot of the writing. There are some writing issues that hurt this film. And I've definitely had some of the same issues with the 2025 Superman film. But I'm not going to say that this is the worst movie. Let's just be honest. The film is flopping because of several factors. Not because the movie is just absolutely terrible. A lot of it, again, has to do with what's been going on with movies in general. The fact that the budget was completely overblown. The fact that James Gunn just has not been handling what's going on with the DC universe. The fact that people are still kind of pissed at what happened with the DCEU, with the DCEU, the lineup and stuff that the films are coming out in, and people are like, well, we don't need no Supergirl movie. We want Wonder Woman. Shut up! You had Wonder Woman last. A Supergirl film coming out ain't a bad idea, and I don't understand why people would just be that asinine to be like, well, we don't need a Supergirl movie. Every single time we start a universe off, we gotta have Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. It's like, come on, dude, that's stupid. If you're gonna go by that logic, then technically Wonder Woman would be first. But anyways, and then like I said, what's going on with the whole woke Hollywood, and then Millie Alcock has definitely not handled this well. So there's been a lot of reasons why this film is flopping the way it's flopping. I personally, like I said, I enjoyed the film. It's not the best film in the world. It's not going to break any new barriers or anything like that. It's not going to bring people together. But I enjoyed the film for what it was. So having said that, I did think that the film was could have been better, especially with the writing and characterization of the main bad guy. And there are some plot holes too. A lot of plot holes actually. Because one of the things I was thinking about while I was watching this film was where the hell are the Green Lanterns? These bad guys are that damn bad. Green Lanterns probably should show up at some point, but But despite the writing, some problems with the direction, and a really poor villain, I will say that I did enjoy the film. I did like Alcock's performance as Supergirl. I did like the story. I did like the emotional beats, because that's why I walked in wanting to see. I did like Jason Momoa as Lobo. I did like some of the action scenes in the way that it was shot. Thought that was actually pretty good too. It definitely could have been a better film, but I walked away from it and I did enjoy it. I haven't said that. Supergirl definitely deserves 3 out of 5. All right, so we're going to get into the spoiler section now. But before I get into that, be sure to hit that like, share, subscribe, and that notification button to get the best of what we got going on. And let's get on to the spoiler section. Now, in the film, this girl Ruth, her family ends up being attacked by Krem, who the father is a blacksmith and apparently one of the best blacksmiths of that planet. And Krem comes there to get weapons. Yeah, he comes there to get weapons. So one of the things that happens in the film, which I didn't like, was Ruth ends up witnessing this exchange, and really everything jumps off because it's kind of dumb. Okay, Ruth is watching the mom and dad deal with this bad guy with Krem, and then Ruth's brother is listening to a headset, and I'm like, this is in space. Why would this kid be listening to a headset? And I'm not saying that they can't have some form of that, but it looked like he just listened to like a cassette player or something. And so he jumps out. What happens? Krem throws an axe, gets him in the back. This starts a fight. Parents get killed, and the little girl is left to, try to left for revenge and stuff, because she ends up burying him. And I thought that whole escalation was stupid. I was like, if he came there to just be a dick, just to kill them, then I'm fine with that. But the fact that this kid sitting here listening to, and it's like, read the room. Your sister is looking at something with a very intense gaze. Why would your first thought be, let me see what's going on? And it's not like you took the things out, you heard what was happening. It was like, I didn't understand that part. I thought that was kind of weird. Weird setup. So she ends up burying him, and this is where I'll compare the comics to it slightly, because I do want to do an individual video comparing, the movie to the comic. In the comic, Krem killed her dad and buried his sword in her dad and left it. So she took Krem's sword and was planning to kill Krem with his own sword. But in this film, the dad is like a swordsman, because in the book he wasn't a swordsman. They were like rock farmers. And and that was kind of another thing I didn't like. If you were to show that the family were rock farmers, I feel like that would make Krem look like much more of a bad guy, because they're literally nobodies. But the dad being like this ultimate swordsman, blacksmith and everything, I think that made them a target. So it didn't feel artificial. It felt artificial. It didn't feel right. It felt artificial. It felt like, oh, now he has a reason to go attack them, rather than not having one at all. So she goes to this bar after she buries her family. And when, she gets there, she's talking to all of these people, which I thought that was kind of weird, that she just started just yelling it. I would have kind of maybe went to a person here or there, but it's literally a place full of people. You don't even know them. And she just like yells, hey, but I thought she was kind of going to interview people, like, hey, who's a bounty hunter? Who's a mercenary, And then, of course, this dude, Supergirl happens to just be there, drunk, trying to party. And Crypto did not get on my nerves this movie. I felt like he was an emotional weight to Supergirl, and it made sense for him to be there, because when you learn, as I was saying in my spoiler-free section, that she was dealing with, losing her whole planet. Next to Superman, Crypto is the only other thing she has from her planet, and they play that up in this story. So Crypto, and the fact that Crypto's not in it as much does help too. But it was good that he actually had an emotional attachment and a reason to actually be there. The Superman film, he had no reason to be there whatsoever, and he was completely annoying. And it took for this dog to get poisoned in this film for him not to be annoying. But so she goes. Ruthye is trying to get help. Some guy comes, steals her sword, and then Supergirl ends up fighting this dude. And she's actually, that's what I was saying, she wasn't girl bossing because she actually got beat or was getting kind of beat, but she was weak because of the red sun and because of the red sun. Now the reason why she's there is because she's trying to get drunk because the red sun, and nullifies her powers, so she was able to get drunk and stuff. But through twist of fate, Ruthye ends up getting over Supergirl. The dog gets poisoned thanks to Krem, and then Krem takes off with Supergirl's ship, and thus goes our adventure. Now, as far as an adaptation of Woman of Tomorrow, I think that they did touch on some of the main core concepts, and mainly it was two. One, Supergirl learning to accept what's happened and kind of move on and let go of the grief and the anger that she experiences, as well as kind of the same thing with Ruthie's character. I think it does land on some of those core themes, but there are some nuances that definitely was skipped over. And the introduction of Lobo was one of them. Now, honestly, if they would have taken Lobo out of the film, I don't think the film would have changed, because he didn't directly have a direct effect on the main story. It was cool he was in the film, but I think if they just taken him out, literally would just kind of play it out the same way. So, I do like the survivor's guilt of Kara. I keep saying Supergirl, but the name Kara. Ruthye, I already stated. I think that they don't do enough with her character. We don't see enough of her in her film. We do see some, but not enough of it. And also a big issue, I would say, kind of with the way the film's approach to the aliens were. I don't like the fact that a majority of the aliens look like people. It's like, I'm like, if y'all aliens, it's like, you can differentiate them, because in the comic, at least, Ruthie's and her family's eyes they had these headdress things I would have liked to seen in the comics, and also their eyes were purple. And I'm like, you're not from Earth. I get that there's this thing where the aliens look like humans, but do something to differentiate her from regular people, because all of the humans, if you don't literally look like an alien in this film, you look like a person. And it's not like a person you can look at them like, oh, okay, maybe Krem's guys, they look human, but you can tell they're alien. But just, I wish they do enough to kind of get her over the edge, but not like a complete leap. Like, you don't see the same emotional depth and development that Kara got, that Ruthye got, that Kara got. So I will say that. Lobo did like Jason Momoa. He had enough screen time. I don't think he needed to be in the film like super much. I think it would have taken away from the two main characters, but I think he was in the film enough. Superman is actually in the film, but he's mostly in flashbacks, but his role is actually good in the film. I love seeing the awkwardness that's between these two characters during these sequences, and I thought he did a good job. Look, I'm not against the man in the first Superman film. I think he does a good job. I think they do kind of make him off kind of wimpy, especially the way he approaches certain situations. He doesn't have a physical commanding presence like Christopher Reeve or Henry Cavill, but I'm hoping that the next film he'll have that. But I did like the hopeful look that he does have, and I like the way they did approach his relationship with Kara in this film. So, but and Krem, again, he does have a strong opening. That part, he sits down, he's like, "What is that?" And it's pie, and he eating the pie like that. It was great. It was cool. It wasn't even like there was much talking. It was just simple dialogue, but it made him seem very intimidating. He didn't have any development whatsoever. He didn't have any real memorable scenes. He just comes off. In fact, he comes off more like a henchman than the actual main villain. So, and I'm not saying that the Krem in the comics was the deepest either, but he was much more interesting. He got to do much more bad things. But it, and then like I said, henchman, completely forgettable. Completely forgettable. There's one guy that Lobo was after, but he never stands out. Visually, I thought it was a good film, good looking film. There are some aliens that do show up there, like these techno bandits. I thought that was pretty cool. They had technology to let them teleport, and had little robots that scanned stuff and was tearing up the ship and all of that. I thought that was actually pretty cool. I would have liked to see more of them too. The costume designs I thought looked pretty cool. The practical effects was pretty cool. The CGI was good. Yeah, some iffy moments here and there, especially with some of the flight sequences, but for the most part, it was straight. The one takes definitely deserve thumbs up. I don't care what nobody says. The one takes are some of the best. One takes are always great. But that end scene though, the ending scene where Kara is like, okay, she's doing her thing, epic. And not only that, it was shot like one shot too, but it was epic. That's the type of stuff I want to see from a Superman film. I want to see that type of stuff. Ultimately though, like I said, my final thoughts as far as this film is concerned, I did like it. Like I said, it was one thing. It was one decision I did like. One change that they did like. That I did like in this, in the comic, then different in the comic. In this, at the end, Ruthye is about to kill Krem, and Supergirl talks her down. And then when Ruthye walks off, Supergirl then turns around and kills him. And I like that. She took away the burden of killing this dude from Ruthye, so that way Ruthye wouldn't have to live with it because she can. She can't. There's not that same emotional attachment to her like that. So she ended up taking it. And I did like that. I thought that was a really good change. Now, I was about to end it, but then I thought about something. This is one of the biggest issues that I have with this film. Okay, so in the film, you end up finding out the brigands, which for some reason they kept calling them brigands. And I was like, are they the only brigands? Do the brigands have a name? Why is it when you say the brigands, you're not just naming this guy specifically? Because I'd be like, I'm looking for Krem. I'm looking for Krem. Where you at? So I thought that was kind of weird. But in the film, the brigands are kidnapping girls and using them and forcing them to be brides. Okay. Something to make the bad guy be a bit more evil. You don't like him. I mean, he's already killing and pillaging stuff, so that's not like bad enough. But I'm also one of them type of people. I'm like, this look, the thing that happens in real life. But I'm like, it's weird because when it's addressed in like comics, people be like, it's the worst. And a part of me is like, well, if he's pillaging and killing people, he probably would do that too. But I don't think that the film talks about, brings the whole, stealing wives and stealing girls and everything, but it doesn't capitalize on the storytelling of that. And if we could have seen better writing concerning that, because it felt like, honestly, they didn't have to be girls. They could have just been like people that he'd just been kidnapping, and it would have been the exact same thing. We don't see the girls like doing anything. We every time we see the girls, they're like in cages and stuff. But it's like, again, that could have been anybody. That could have been little kids. That could have been war criminals. That could have been men that they was people that they were stealing to, extort other people to pay the money for them and stuff like that. Like that, the way is done in this is just not done right. It's not central to the story. So the fact that they were women being kidnapped, because we don't even see them being brides. They were stolen to be brides, but the entire time they're in cages. You don't see them, in the brigand's house cleaning or no stuff like that. Or usually when you see people as slaves in films, you see them doing stuff to reinforce that they're slaves. You didn't see that in this. So the fact that they brought that up, and then there is kind of this moment at the end where I don't necessarily think it was a girl power moment, but I could see where people would get the idea for. So when people talk about the girls being kidnapped as wives, I understand why, because it does feel tacked on, but but the storytelling could have worked better towards that had they actually wrote it better, because it takes away. And another thing about that is it did take away from the storytelling surrounding Kara and Ruthye. That whole thing of it should have been just, this story could have just served as a revenge, them having both their eyes set on getting this one guy, but now they got to look at trying to save all these other chicks and stuff like that. So just the way it was written in the film just wasn't written well enough for it to be put in the film. So and also there was something else that I wanted to bring up as well. Gosh, it was something else. It was something I just thought about while I was talking about this. Oh, okay. There is, and this is another thing that I think the comics did much better. There's a scene in this which, the way it's set up, it doesn't make any sense. There's a scene where Kara is looking for Krem. She corners this guy. The guy's like, okay, I'll take you to him, but you got to put a bag over your head. I'm thinking to myself, you just saw this girl wipe out all of these people. Why would you tell me you need a bag over the head? It ain't gonna matter. But you know what? Never mind. I do know why. No, because they put the bag over her head to take her to a planet where one of the suns is a regular sun, the other sun is a green sun. And they're like, well, a green sun will drain her powers. I'm like, no. Kryptonite will weaken her and drain her powers, not a green sun. That's two totally different things. So they trick her and they take her there, and then the green sun's killing her. Now, this is where, and Krem's sitting there. Now, this is where I would say, okay, it makes sense. If he knows the Kryptonians after him, he would go to a planet where a Kryptonian can't go. That makes sense. Now, in the comics, like that idea, I'm good with. But in the comics, they managed to catch up to Krem, and then Krem had a magical ball that he hit her with, and that teleported her to that planet. And one of the things that you see Ruthye do in the comics is Supergirl is basically dying at this point. She's extremely ill. She's extremely vulnerable. She can't move. And Ruthye has to protect her. And, there's dinosaurs and all of these violent creatures on there. And Ruthye has to fight these creatures to protect Kara. And that was great. That was great. And it showed Ruthye having to, the whole time, Supergirl's protecting her. So now you get to see that reverse. And her just and it again helps with the character develop. But in the movie, that's not handled well, because on this planet, it's nothing. There's nothing there. You don't see any animals and all of that. And then when Ruthye does have a moment, she gets captured the moment she separates from Kara. So, but like I said, there are some moments too where, again, she's looking for Krem. There's a moment where they had this big fight. She's looking for Krem, and between super speed, super hearing, and X-ray vision, she doesn't catch the guy she doesn't find the guy till too late. You would think she would have found him almost immediately, but And then, like I said, I've already talked about the space, her being in space, and it seems like she's actually breathing. I mean, you see her get in a suit at one point, but before that and after that, it doesn't seem like she needed. So, but I will say that there was one scene where she, and this is, she was, it was flashbacks, and she was, thinking about, her parents, and she flies up into the air, into the atmosphere, and she screams, but it's the atmosphere, so she's, so she can't hear. You can't hear nothing because there's no sound there. I thought that was a good scene, even though it's kind of like, it goes back to what I was saying about them breathing in space and all of that stuff, so. But that's why I like the film. I do acknowledge that the film has a lot of problems, and I agree with some of these people's criticisms of the film. But to ultimately say that this is the worst film of like 2026, one of the worst superhero films, is a flop, and like I said, a lot of people I think actually are grifting off of it. They might have some legitimate concerns about it, which I'm cool with and all of that. And if you just don't like the film, you just don't like the film. But to just say this like the worst. Have you seen some of these comic book movies that's come out? Have you seen some of the movies that came out this year? I can show you some movies that's actually freaking terrible from start to end. This ain't one of them. Does this movie stumble? A lot. But it's not the worst. It's absolutely not the worst. Is it better than the original? Yes, it is. It quite frankly is. Even though the villain in the original is much better than the villain in this one. So, but anyways, this is supposed to be my 4th of July stream, and I ain't even said that this whole time. I didn't even mention it was a 4th of July stream video. Wow. It's supposed to be Supergirl, and I ain't even mention it. I feel so freaking terrible now. God, dog. Well, look. I feel so freaking bad. And I forgot. Wow. This is supposed to be my 4th of July stream. Well, happy late 4th of July. But while we're out there, guys, go out there, enjoy yourself, pop fireworks, eat you some good barbecue, spend time with your family, have fun, just be careful out there. But anyways, man, I feel bad. I was supposed to announce this was my 4th of July stream. I put it in the description. My bad, y'all, sorry. But anyways, guys, in the comment section below, let me know what are your thoughts about Supergirl. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Do you agree with any of the points that I had regarding the positives, or do you agree with any of the points that I had that were the negatives? Be sure to hit that like, share, subscribe, and that notification button to get the best of what we got going on the channel. And we'll catch you guys later. And happy 4th of July 2026.